Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Let's,
Oh, who's that
who's what?
on who on your shirt?
Hmm. It's a random corgi. This was a present from the Croft sisters.
Oh, it's cute. It's cute.
Thanks.
All corgis are cute, but
That's that's true. That is
there's
true.
a there's a lot of corgis in the hunt.
There are.
Yeah.
I mean, there's ours, there's the Crofts. The librarian has a corgi.
Yeah. Are the Crofts, is that the one that's a Pembroke or
Those are the two fluffy ones.
yeah, the Fluffies, right.
Yeah. And Sean and Pat have one. Gene Sigerty has a corgi again.
Yes. Yep.
There are probably more. Hi there.
Hi. Hello. Sorry. Hello.
1, 2, 3. Dan is 4. We need one more.
You know, Melanie can't come. Tim can't come. Can't remember. There's Dan.
Yeah, Dan's here.
Good evening.
Hi there. And Allison, is Tony with you?
Camera's off.
Sorry, I believe Tony is zooming in from the town hall. He's supposed to.
Oh, okay.
I'm at my house.
Good for you.
You see where I turn it on?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Of course,
Hi, Dan.
oh, look, I've got some blur.
Oh, Dan, you've got interesting coloring.
Yes, yes, Mike. I may have overdone it at the tanning booth. Yes.
Well, I have to be in the, can you turn off the camera?
Looks more like you've been in the Caribbean.
Yes.
You should just say which island.
The nice one.
Which one? You have to name one.
Oh, Granada.
Oh, that's a great island. I've been there.
We liked it. We could tell the neighborhoods by the how nice the dogs were. We started out in a place where the dogs were very healthy with beautiful coats. And then we got to the next neighborhood and the dogs were a little more ragged. And then finally the last neighborhood only seemed to have 3-legged dogs.
Oh, the Spice Island. Grenada.
Yes.
I was there fairly shortly after our invasion.
Oh,
Remember?
nice.
We invaded Grenada
Yeah.
Yes.
and we had dinner at the house of this lovely, oh, Grenadian charming woman who had made Thanksgiving for our invading force.
Well, thoughtful. That's the
Yeah.
way to treat invaders.
Yep. She said they were really nice people and they loved her callaloo soup. All good.
So we know Melanie can't make it. We know Tim can't make it. Um, which leaves what? Peter as our mystery.
Did he ever answer?
I don't think so. But anyway, without
We'd
one
have to wait for
more.
Tony.
Well, no, Tony's here.
Oh, he is.
Yep.
Oh, there he is.
Hi.
I,
Hi, Tony.
Without Tony, we will fail for lack of a quorum.
You mean without Peter?
Sorry, without Peter. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Huh.
a quorum isn't 4 people?
I think you need 5.
Yeah, it's one more than break even.
Okay,
2.
So it's an 8-person committee.
right.
It's Beatty, Dan, Deborah, Peter, Tim, and Melanie. No, it's a 7-person committee.
Yeah, because someone stepped down.
That's right. All right, so we're
Uh,
fine then.
Oh, well, we still need 5 people, don't we?
No, because it's a 7, right now it's a 7-person committee, right?
4 will do
Vanderslice,
it.
Beatty, Dan, Deborah Warren, um, Peter, Tim, and
Oh,
Mel.
I see.
That's,
Yep.
that's 7 fingers. So 4 would be a quorum.
Terrific.
All right, so good. Then off we go. So it is now 7:38.
And
And
who's taking minutes?
who is taking minutes? Let's call the meeting to order and then we'll ask that question.
Okay, because I did send you my minutes.
If you want, I will take minutes.
Cool.
If I find my notebook. Okay. This will be good practice for me.
Okay, we owe you, Bob. I owe you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
So,
Peter's joining now, he said. I texted him.
oh, good. All right. So we were called to order at 7:38, and we've got everyone
It's 6:38.
6:38.
You gotta put your clocks back an hour there, Bob. You missed.
I know.
Still an
I know.
hour.
I'm
ahead.
just confused because I was leading this meeting with people from the Central Time Zone and the Pacific Time Zone, and
Oh.
it was just and then there's somebody from Europe joined us at one point as well. So it was very interesting. All right, so we've got everyone except Melanie and Tim.
Peter.
And well, I'm giving Peter the benefit of the doubt.
Ah,
All right. And okay, so we
Sorry
are
I'm late,
here.
folks.
Thank you, Peter.
Emergency at work.
I understand. Did the emergency involve what your thing is showing there?
What is my
Yeah.
thing showing?
A
Feel sorry for
beautiful
your-
sailboat.
Oh, the boat?
Nice
No,
work.
no, I'm sorry. That was the boat we sailed in Greece. No,
Nice.
mold issue. All right, there we go. Sorry about that.
That's much more prosaic than.
Thank you.
All right, so the agenda for this evening calls for, or actually, let me just back up. Object of the exercise, this is the get organized meeting for the upcoming town meeting season.
Yes.
So Tony will give us a bit of a briefing about what he sees as the schedule. What are the big rocks or what can we expect coming at us during the next town meeting? We should be able to at least do a rough schedule, and we should also do liaison assignments.
Mm-hmm.
And we should sometime soon elect officers. I'm tempted to say let's hold on electing officers until we have a full committee. Does anyone have thoughts on that?
I would agree with you as far as a full committee, definitely. I mean, I'm not sure who we're missing, but
We're missing Tim and Melanie.
yeah, I would definitely do that.
Yeah, so we'll hold on that one. So Tony, I think I'm just going to give the floor to you.
To that point, Bob, do we have a backfill headed our way as we look towards divvying out these tasks for officers?
I
Or
have
empty
not
seats?
heard of any new candidates.
I've, I, full disclosure, I pulled papers today to run for town moderator. So
Oh, wow.
I don't know that it'd be right to say, I want you guys to vote for me, but more to the point of, I've had conversations with Dave Conlon, and he did say that, he was going to try and fill all vacant positions before he's done. So hopefully we would get that position filled, and obviously it being Luke that had that position, he's, acutely aware of the vacancy. So, and then just as an FYI, if I, hopefully do get elected, then I would immediately need to resign myself. So for the last 3 weeks before town meeting, I would not be able to, continue.
When is the election?
Last Saturday in April, I think.
April, yeah. Last Saturday, April, and then 3 weeks later is town meeting.
So we have to have someone on deck at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good luck,
But
Peter.
your intention is to commit to continue on the committee until that point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, no, I have babies to kiss and hands to shake, and no, I wouldn't leave. I enjoy this committee. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it looks good on the resume too, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
most of all, Dave has promised to give you all kinds of tips about his inimitable humor
Yes. Yes.
and how he keeps meetings moving right along.
That's the big thing.
Well, the
Yes.
scary part is you get elected and then 3 weeks later is town meeting. So it's not like, it's not like you get any formal training or anything. There is a moderator society that you can work with and whatever, but it's kind of, yeah.
Well, yeah, there really is no, there really is no training other than,
He has to
knowing,
take an exam in Robert's Rules of Order.
yeah, town meeting time is actually the right, so anyways.
Well, you won't be, I mean, we'll have legal there that know like the procedures really well.
Yeah.
And then we go over a lot of those, like the standard process. We go through that a couple nights before.
Right. It's all
You just gotta be
scripted.
ready for the unexpected, floor motions that,
Yeah.
that
Yep.
sort of stuff.
But
I think there's always time to say, okay, hold on a second. Let me understand how that works.
Yep. And I've been on committees, and, I've been on enough committees, and I was the chairman of the school committee for a year. So I know the basic rules of the road and, points of order and things like that. So I'm more nervous about, having something come up that's totally out in left field that, because occasionally I've seen Dave go to his book or talk to the
yeah,
lawyer and stuff. So that's the stuff I'm not looking forward to.
yeah.
So,
And
but
somehow
anyways,
you've got to learn the avuncular style.
yeah.
Right. He's a little too young. You're a little too young for it, Peter.
Thanks. Yeah. I know I'm going to follow the same rules as Dave when it comes to, if you speak on a motion, you can't call the question, because I've always respected that you got to give people a chance to rebut. So.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Excellent. Well, good luck to you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
But
To the point, hopefully Dave will have somebody, soon.
good. I hope so.
You guys
Right.
have anyone that you can pitch to Dave? Think about it anyways.
Yeah, I've done that in the past and I don't know.
Yeah, it's,
Anyway,
I mean, Jeff Lewis is now an alternate on the planning board. I don't know if he plans on running for a planning board seat. And I know he's always like, after leaving, he tried, getting back on. But that could be an option too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I specifically mentioned Jeff to Dave. We'll see.
So, all right, so I did want to, before you guys go and meet, separate as liaisons and go meet with individual departments, I think there's some high level budget stuff to talk about too. I can do that first, or I can go into schedule first.
Let's hear the view from 30,000 feet.
All right, so, I mean, as far as unrestricted revenues from last year compared to this year is an additional about $360,000. That's it. Which is normal. That's about our typical Prop 2.5 growth compared to the previous year. However, what we've received from requests from departments asks for $1.2 million more. So Allison and I are facing a $600,000 to $800,000 gap
Oof.
based on what we have available to use and what people want.
What was that figure again, Tony? The gap?
It's like 600 to 800.
Okay.
is there definite or definitive reasons why they
Yeah.
need those increases? Like, are they, contract negotiations or is it I
Most,
want or I need or I must have?
there's the bulk of those increases are caused by school tuition. They have an increased amount of kids that are in special education and out of district costs. But we're working with them to see if there's like alternative ways to fund certain elements of their budget to the school currently has two different versions of their budgets. One is like their base, and two includes the addition of a new specialist. I went to the school committee meeting and talked to them about this, and I explained to them, right now I'm nervous about being able to fund their minimum budget. The added employees, I get it. I understand the need for it and I understand the desire for it. But I don't see how we could do it this year. So we're still working with them on that element. Another huge element is benefits and insurances. Our retirees in January 1st, their insurance went up like 20%.
Holy cow.
Now, we don't have our retiree numbers yet. Allison's been talking to other accountants in other towns and doing some homework. Right now, we're trying to budget that number. In our current budget, we have it at about 10 to 15%, but we don't have the final number yet. So those are the biggest things. Everybody else, everyone else is pretty much everyone else is under contract, except for the only contract employee really that has a contract that I need to negotiate is Zach, our DPW superintendent. And then in the school, they have Unit B and 12 individual contracts that they need to negotiate. Anybody outside of an active contract that is an uncontracted employee, we've asked them to put in for 2.5% increase on their salary, which is like the bare minimum, really. If you look at inflation, COLA right now based on inflation is like in the 6% range.
Mhm.
So what you're looking at here is on the left is our unrestricted revenues, which adds up to 14.6 million. And then on the right is what the requests that have come in. And so you can see you have the big chunk of it is school tuition, big chunk of it is benefits as insurance. If you look, and now remember remember how I always split this up into two separate buckets? You know, you have your operating expenses, which is funded by real estate taxes and state aid and stuff like that. And then you have your free cash bucket. So I'm just talking about operating expenses right now. On the left here, you can see how that's grown about at the same rate every single year. And on the right, you can see how that amount has increased every single year. You know, and then you can see a lot of that is really coming from benefits, school transportation, you know, tuition, how it's split up.
What's the green?
The green is benefits and insurance. That's a big jump. And we're
is a
hoping that number comes down.
Tony, on the school committee stuff, isn't there a circuit breaker, federal or state monies that are available? Like,
Yeah, so that's what we're working on with them. In their latest budget, they've included circuit breaker to offset some of these costs. Circuit breaker is it's hard to explain, but it's really based on your out of district costs from the previous year, not your current year. So it doesn't match up perfectly. And it only reimburses you. I think it's Allison. Are you on, Allison? But I think it's 70% on tuition and 50% up to 70 and up to 50% on transportation. So it's not a full
right.
Right, it's
reimbursement.
only it's 75% on tuition and it's 40% on transportation.
Oof.
So we're working with them on how to offset some of the costs, you know, that they are seeing because of new students that require these special education needs, and trying to find a way to balance that out. As far as free cash goes, this shows you our free cash amounts, how it's changed over every year. So in the last 2-3 years, we've actually enjoyed a healthy amount of free cash. A lot of that was because of COVID money and things of that nature. This year, we're down from where we were last year, closer to the year before. Honestly, around $800,000 is a healthy amount of free cash where we should be for our budget. It's typical. So it's a major decrease from the lucrative years we've had, but it's not unhealthy. You know, free cash, you don't want it to be too much and you don't want it to be too little. So this is about where we should be. But on the free cash, here, let me exit out here. On the free cash side, we have about 800,000 in free cash. We have requests that add up to $860,000. And that doesn't include what we usually do is use some free cash to fund things like stabilization and OPEB. So the gap there is, you know, more than $60,000. So now I think that some things that are going to change looking forward. Next year, you're going to have new growth coming in once the Coast Guard housing is developed. As people build homes there, you'll have new growth coming in. Quick recap, 5 of the 6 lots that we put up for sale have been sold, and another 6 lots are up for sale right now. We paid off that 1.8 million. We have we brought in 2.4, so the difference got added to the $1.3 million debt, which is due at the end of the fiscal year. And so we need to raise another $600,000 to $700,000 to pay off that 1.3. And these homes are selling on average, these lots are selling for like 480. So with 2 more sales, we should pay off that 1.3. But anyways, the sale of those properties, the rest of that, after you pay off that debt, that will be free cash next year, not this year. So we don't get to enjoy that yet. And then the new growth really won't be until properties are developed and they get to be valued, with a full house on it. So looking forward, things will get better. I think as far as obviously next year, I think we're going to have more in our operating expenses bucket, and we'll have more in our free cash bucket solely because of Coast Guard housing. Additionally, next year, which is a benefit to the taxpayers, is school debt comes off the books. So there'll be a reduction in your real estate tax bill because we won't be paying that school debt anymore. That won't really affect our budget because it's raised in addition to your real estate tax, but it'll be a benefit to residents on the tax bill.
But you can't, there's no way to grab that
No.
or some of that.
No, nope. So my message to all the department heads that I've met with, and Allison's been in every meeting, I've said it to every single one of them. I said the same thing to the school, is like, this year, we really need to be thin. We need to think thin this year. It'll get better next year. But if there are things that are wants versus needs, you really gotta think about looking towards next year, possibly with that want. We really got to narrow it down to needs. And we're still kind of going through all the numbers and trying to figure out how we're going to get to a balanced budget. There's a lot of work for Allison and I to do. I'm not too concerned about the free cash stuff. I think we'll find a way. There'll be some capital requests that we can't do this year, but I do think I'm not too concerned about that side. It's the operating expense side that I'm really concerned about right now. You're going to have departments. I've also told departments, you've heard it from the fire department and the police department about needing additional staff. We talked about that last year. I told them, you still got to explain that to the finance committee and to your liaison, what those needs are. You just got to understand that they might not be in the budget to be able to do it this year. But I've told department heads, still advocate on your own behalf, but go into it understanding that there's not a lot of extra money here to go around. And right now, of the $363,000 that we're bringing in extra for operating expenses over last year, 270,000 of that needs to go to the school for their minimum budget. That only leaves us $90,000 for everything else. So that's where we have to talk to the school about, can you offset a little bit more of that with some of your own funding opportunities? And then work with the other departments to see where we can trim some of those. And I also, there's a tip of what you would tip when you're dealing with this situation, you're going to hear from the public, and you would typically probably hear from a town administrator that salaries, we got to go after salaries. We got to limit salaries, that sort of stuff. There really isn't. We're already other folks are under contract. The folks that aren't, we're talking about a 2.5%. So we're already approaching it really thin. But my big thing is, as we've talked about, is, I want to try and exhaust all other options before looking in that department, because all of our staff is, we've done the salary classification study. We've looked at comps. If we don't try to meet certain market rates, we're going to lose people to other communities that are able to pay way more. So I don't like to try to solve all of our problems by cutting staff or cutting salaries, because you're bleeding from within when you do that. So try to find other things, like if there's purchase services like software upgrades or certain projects or things like that, how can we move that to next year and cut down those costs?
That was going to be my question. So are there things in there that are like capital in nature, but they're part of an operating budget?
Not really. You'll recall last year, like for the one unique example, like with the fire department, we funded a pilot program of having a call fireman work a full-time shift with the two full-time people. We funded that out of free cash, even though it was salary, because it was a pilot program. Austin, when he meets with you guys, I mean, when you hear he's so good, and everything he talked about with us, like, you know, it hits home so hard, and his needs are, the staffing issues there are so critical. And this pilot program was extremely beneficial. So I know he wants to continue that again. Honestly, I don't know how we would be able to continue it again unless we fund it with free cash like we did last year, which now you're starting to get into that habit, which you really don't want to get into. So, but looking forward, next year, seems like a better year to maybe make that transition to an operating, not.
About how much do we think we're going to get from the new housing, the Coast Guard housing?
In new growth?
Yeah.
I thought when we looked at it, if they were all, if all 12 of them, I thought we said somewhere between like 100 and 150.
That was where my rough mental math was.
Yeah. But that's only a 1 year new growth amount. And then moving forward after that, it's 2.5% from that
It
new
reverts back
total.
to 2.5.
Yeah. So it's not 150 every year. It's 1 year, 150, and then it's 2.5% of whatever the 14 million it is. So yeah, I know the library is looking for some major capital improvements they're pushing. I've talked to them, the hard reality of it. I think there are some things that need to be addressed, and then there's a lot of things that fall under a want category for me. Unfortunately,
I believe they're approaching CPC for funding.
they are, but CPC is tight too this year. CPC is tight too. Their match, I think, was decreased compared to previous years from the state. So their number's tight too. I'm talking with Lynn about that and seeing if there's ways for us to collaborate on the things that they need, and with free cash, like maybe there's a way to do some of it with free cash and some of it with CPC money. So, but the larger stuff that they want to do, or the staff increases that police and fire want to do, that school want to do, that, a public safety building, which is years down the road, those types of things those are override need, like in order to accomplish those things, you need an override. And, looking at folks that are on this, I've explained to them that that's the tool, but I've told them that, for me, it's hard to support something like that currently, with other things that are lingering over the town, litigation type things.
Mhm.
So, it's a tight year. It's a tough year. I think, just keep that in mind when you meet with the folks, listen to what they have to say, store it away as potential future options, but be careful about committing to stuff because it's really tight. It's really tight to do things this year. And then the other element is, as you guys know, we have the MBTA 3A compliance requirement this year. We're not going to be looking into that until the end of the year, probably a special town meeting. But a lot of this, the exposure, I guess, of non-compliance with that, a lot of it is grants, and a lot of it, and then the other part of it is with that Milton case, the AG's efforts are to if she's successful in her suit against Milton, which I assume she would carry to other towns that don't comply, one of those elements of relief was that Milton can't enforce its local zoning if they don't comply. In other words, if a multifamily development were to propose or come in for a building permit in Milton, and they aren't in compliance with 3A, they wouldn't be able to deny the permit. And that is if that
Whoa.
ends up coming true and could be applied to other towns that don't comply, that's a huge concern for me and our town. Because as you guys remember, when we were talking about the HPP and 40B risks, a lot of that conversation was, well, 40B's been around forever. And we haven't had any type of like 40B developments here because economically it doesn't make sense when they have, well, 3A doesn't have an affordability element to it. So that whole economic value thing goes out the window. And now all of a sudden you're talking about, the potential of like luxury condos type thing. So we're not there yet, but it should be on your, you should keep it in mind. The grant side of it, which is a for sure thing, if you don't comply, you can't get the grants. A lot of those grants we use to invest in projects that ultimately save us money on the operating expense side. So that's concerning to me too, from a financial side. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know I'm not advocating for a certain solution or anything really right now. If you listened to the state of the town last night that I gave at the selectmen meeting, I'm really just pushing for those conversations to start happening. Because when we saw what happened with Greystone Road last year, we didn't do enough public process to grab the attention of the abutting neighborhood. And they came in last minute and said, you can't do this to us. And we said, all right, okay. If that, we can't afford that type of process to come out with MBTA. And when town meeting's over, everybody kind of enjoy, rightfully so, enjoy Nahant. It's summertime, that's why we live here, but fall will come quick. So really right now, I'm just pushing pressure. I'm trying to apply pressure really to the planning board to get started on those conversations. But what will come up at this town meeting is the ADU bylaws. So I'm going to share my screen to show you the schedule. Let's see.
Do we have any choice on the ADU bylaw? Is that something that we have any input on anyway?
No, your choice, you're basically, if you don't change your local zoning to allow for protected ADUs, conforming protected ADUs to be allowed by right, they are by law allowed by right. Doing a local zoning article allows you to further regulate them. So it's more like you could do nothing and then they're going to be allowed by right and you have no control, or you can do something and have some control over it.
And I would think there'd be some tax revenue opportunity if people decide to build,
unfortunately,
mini houses in their backyard.
Unfortunately, the way I see it is the potential cost impacts of ADUs outpace the potential revenue of new growth built by ADUs. So when they're protected ADU 900 square feet. If 10 ADUs were built in Nahant and one of those had a special needs student in them, that could be a $70,000 cost to our school budget when you're only bringing in like what, $5,000 more in tax revenue.
Yeah, even with, granted, you can't really figure out what it costs to add an additional student to an elementary school that we already run. Take special needs out of the picture. When that student gets to the Swampscott school system, we're now paying a tuition for them. And individuals are counted. So the additional cost of having that one, person or whatever, literally is going to be,
Like
yeah,
17,000 a year per
right.
student.
So if you have, a small two-family ADU, or a two-person, you got I don't know, some parents and a kid, and that kid hits high school, there goes your tax revenue for all the years that they live there, essentially.
Yeah, yes. So Dan, you asked like so one of the things that the state allows us to do with a local bylaw is we can require, it sounds like we have the ability to require utility connections to an ADU to be ran from the primary structure. And if we don't do an article saying that, then an ADU could try to get fed with utilities from the force main, from the water main and sewer main on the street. Just the cost of installing those things outweigh the tax revenue from the ADU. So that's one element that I'm pushing for in the bylaws, that utilities have to be ran from the primary structure so that it's not adding another service line into the street, and it's not adding another account for us to manage billing on. It's all done through the primary structure. So that's one
Well,
example.
You have a real strong point there, Tony. We don't know what what the profile is going to look like of a potential ADU resident. But what we do know is that the residents of 40B housing have a 40% higher propensity to have students that need IEPs. So
Yep.
you're really on a track here that's not something we're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah, well, again, ADUs also don't have anything to do with affordability either. There's really, it's a little tricky with the way that the state regs are written. It sounds like a draft of the final regs came out today. But the way that it's intended is that an accessory dwelling unit has to be a rental property. When it's a rental property, it doesn't have a separate deed from the primary structure. And thus it can't be used to meet it really can't be used to meet your 40B requirement, because you'd have to deed restrict the entire property.
Yeah, no, it's a totally separate animal
yeah.
from 40B, but we do know that the 40B residents are more likely to impinge and tax
Yep.
the education system.
Yep.
As we enter, as we try to figure out what to do on this.
Yep. So yeah, absolutely. So what you're looking at here,
Does anyone has anyone done like a rigorous model of the finances of ADUs and 40Bs?
Oh, there was
We have it for 40Bs from the other towns that have endured it. Especially in Norwood, you can really see how it's affected spending in the school department. There's no track record on ADUs. We don't know whether they'll be in-laws or folks looking for affordability in a 900 square foot unit.
Right, understood, but
no, I mean, I think Sheila could probably come up with some average estimate of new growth value drawn from a 900 square foot habitable space with a kitchen and a bathroom, obviously there's a wide variety of whether that's high end, low end,
yeah,
and where it's being built. Is it being built within the primary structure, like converting a basement or an attic? Or is it being built as an addition or a completely separate structure on the same lot? So there's a huge variation. But she could probably come up with some range of like how much new growth would we bring in or tax revenue from an ADU? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, and then match that with potential costs.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to have as part of the conversation. Unfortunately, we don't really have a choice on whether
Right.
they're going to be allowed or not.
Yep.
I do think part of the state law and some of the discussion at the planning board, I'm looking to have some more with them. Again, the state law and the state regs are a little bit, the draft regs that they put out, they kind of conflict a little bit. They're a little bit unclear. It seems like the state law, the intent of it was that protected ADUs, which is, meets the definition of 900 square feet and that whole thing, that are conforming, must be allowed by right. They also go into, if you're going to allow additional ADUs on top of that, how you have to do it. Now, the regs came out and they kind of make it sound like you have to allow the protected ADU and the additionals. So we put in our comments to the state, we said, this is a big element for us. So,
but
are you requiring that we allow multiple ADUs and just the protected one is by right, but the others are by special permit? Or can we change our zoning that only the protected ADU is allowed? So that's a big where your point is coming in. I think that's a good talking point to have to say, we really should limit this to just the protected ADU. We're not going to create some sort of special permit process for a second or a third because it outpaces the cost impacts from the generated revenue.
yeah, but right. So I get it. The case of an ADU, which is conforming in all respects, that's fine. That's kind of cut and dried. What about an ADU that would be non-conforming? Question one. What about an ADU that would be so my case one is the property is conforming, but building the ADU would be non-conforming. And then the second situation is it's a non-conforming grandfathered property. Can I still put an ADU there?
So you have basically they say you got to follow the same standards you apply for single family houses. So in case number one, you'd have to get a special permit in order to, if you're adding a non-conformity.
Yep. Okay.
Well, a variance or I'm sorry,
correct.
a variance or a special permit, and
Yep, correct.
pretty much I think, and that's something where we could, I wonder if we would be able to make it the need of a variance. And I say that
It
because
has, as long as it's consistent with single family structures, you can't
Yeah.
make it more
yeah, that's true.
restricting.
Yeah.
Tony, who's responsible for crafting this document? Is this planning or ZBA or the selectmen?
It all
How do we make
comes
it
from
as
planning.
restrictive as possible?
Planning board.
Planning board. So just a little, I sat many years on the zoning board. So planning board writes the rules. Zoning board is the board that you go to basically try and break the rules or bend the rules. And the building inspector is the authority having jurisdiction. So those are the kind of the three places.
So the planning board is currently drafting an article.
Right.
Unfortunately, unless if the regs came out today, that's good. This law goes into effect February 2nd. The AG has offered to review bylaws, like articles, in advance of town meeting to tell you whether the article you're presenting is compliant with the new regs and the law. But it's unlikely we'll get the AG's response on that before we have to initiate the zoning article process with the planning board. So likely, the
How
goal
much lead
was,
time does the AG want?
what's that?
How much lead time does the AG want to turn around their opinion?
They didn't really say, but every town is probably going to do this, and many other towns have town meetings in advance of ours. So I imagine they're going to prioritize them based on when your town meeting is.
Okay.
So if the AG comes back and says you have a problem with your draft, with the article that you've published and you've started to do your public hearing process on, that change would have to be made on the floor at town meeting.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's nuts.
yeah, and I've also, I've also heard there are movements in the wings to put binding referendums on the ballot next year to have these repealed. So look out for that.
Yeah. So, all right, so this, whoops, hold on, where am I?
The schedule.
Do you guys see it?
Yep.
Yep.
Is it big enough?
No?
Nope.
Hold on. Let me try sharing instead of my screen, the actual document.
While you're doing that, I have a question for Tony or Allison. Can you make those slides available that you showed at the beginning of your discussion?
Yes, as we go through our process and we start narrowing down, like there's going to be added information to it, right? This is what everybody requested, but this is what the town administrator selectman budget reflects, those sort of things. So it'll be a kind of an evolving
Right.
document, but yeah, I can send that to you guys.
Yeah, I'd like to see the base. This is a baseline kind of thing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So this schedule, what's highlighted in blue is related to the zoning ADU issue. So we start with later this week, or I'm sorry, early next week, the CPC grant applications are due. Citizen petitions and requests to the selectmen are due at the end of the month. And then we get into the ADU stuff. Now, the way we create this schedule is we start at the bottom. We go
Yep.
with, when is town meeting? May 17th. So when does the book need to be delivered to residents? May 10th. So when does the warrant need to be posted? 14 days before that, May 3rd. So when does the book need to go from you guys to the printer? That needs 3 weeks. So that's Friday, April 18th. Then we started to plug in the planning board process because, as you guys know, the planning board has to have a hearing on a zoning article and they have to write a recommendation. And the ideal situation is that their recommendation gets included in your book so that people can see it going into town meeting. And if we hear back from the AG by then, they can include that in their recommendation that, hey, we're going to be advocating for this floor amendment due to the response from the AG. You want to get that out to people in advance. So they have 21 days from the date of their hearing to issue that recommendation. And then we looked at when the regs and the law goes into play. So our goal was for them to have their ADU article 90% of the way there by February 2nd. So then right after that, when the regs come out, if we have to make any tweaks to it, we can do that quickly, get it to the AG for the review, and then start the planning board hearing process. So from February 3rd to February 17th, the planning board's article should be finalized and submitted to the BOS. The BOS technically then has to send it back to the planning board, and then they have to post the hearing dates for 2 weeks. Their hope is that they're going to have their hearings on March 4th and March 11th, if they need a second day. So that means they have to post their notices by February 18th and 25th. And then our goal on the budget and the articles to have a final budget and articles to you guys by Wednesday, the 19th, which gives you 8 weeks to finalize your recommendations and or make any changes to the budget. Now, prior to February 19th, I hope to be able to give you guys some advanced information about like what the warrant articles are going to look like. I have a general idea of what we're going to be looking at this year, but we should have a final draft to you guys by the 19th. So, and actually, this is it sounds aggressive. It sounds like stressful, but this is about the same exact schedule that you guys worked on last year and the year before.
Yep.
So,
All
and
right.
I also felt like the planning board, you might want to schedule, like, when I looked at this, I said, you don't want to go and give your recommendation to the finance committee the day before they have to send their book to the printer. They might want to meet with you guys and hear what your recommendation is about, and they may write their own recommendation. So the idea was for them to kind of get that to you a week before, so that last week you guys could have a meeting on it or something to meet with them and hear about the ADU thing.
Okay. All right, Tony, I'm gonna steal the screen share.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing right now.
Do I know how to do that? Share. I click the button that says share. This is Zoom. I have to do it twice. It says I'm sharing my screen, but I don't see anything. Do you see anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we see a,
So you see this finance committee schedule Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. All right. So let's just work through this and make sure we're at least on the same page. So what I did here, I mean, obviously we have a calendar over here just to give us some context.
hey, Bob, is there any way to make this bigger? Or isn't that something you can do?
Like that.
That's better.
Okay. I kind of want at least the 3 columns mostly
yeah.
on the screen, right? I'll come back to the FinCom. So this column is intended to be what we are doing in, whoops, what did I do in each of those 3 weeks? There, let's try that. Okay. And then this column called key dates and housing key dates are basically Tony's schedule. I did make some additions to it, except instead of color coding it, I busted it into 2 different columns. So the key dates one is anything that's non-housing related, and this column over here, housing key date, is the dates related to the housing initiatives, especially in particular ADU. Right. So, and Tony, you're right. I started this by working with last year's version. I haven't even touched the way those schedules rolled out by week. It just fit right in exactly. But does this make sense to you? So 2/19, that's the Wednesday of the week. BOS is that's when we get the final budget, and then we just start picking up, and police, fire, all public safety and any public safety related articles are the first week. School, we could let either fire or police drift into the school week if we have to. followed by DPW, Water Sewer Enterprise Fund. So anything public works related, town government benefits pension, CPC. I put the planning board down here on the same week that their recommendations were going to be done.
That's
Is that-
good. That's good. That gives you a little extra time.
Yeah, and then that gives us 2 weeks to do, the cover letter, to button up everything, to do a final read, and then we're off to the printer. Is there any of this? Is there any of this that we can move back up into here?
I don't see why you couldn't start meeting with some of these departments before you get the selectmen's final budget. And then, later, when we're talking about those budgets, you kind of have, you've heard from them and you're hearing from us, you kind of have both sides of the coin to think about.
So which of the budgets are the safest? The safest meaning least likely to change?
Okay, well, so I would say, police, fire, EMD, DPW. I'd hold on school and town government. Town government alone you could do earlier, but benefits, we may not have like final numbers yet. Earlier than later. So benefits and pension, those things I would hold for later. School, same thing. They have an estimated amount of circuit breaker right now, but they won't have like their true numbers until later. CPC is kind of dependent on their schedule.
Yeah, I did try to get in touch with Lynn to find out what she thought she would be ready. I haven't heard.
Allison, do you agree with that take?
Yes, I do. Although I think by that week that you currently have town government and benefits, we should have a good idea of the increase by then. I mean, I'm hoping that we know over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
So I think that's okay being there.
Right, you wouldn't move it up though.
No, I would move school down,
You would move school down.
like move it to later.
Yeah,
How-
you could move
How much
police
later?
even just down one.
Yeah,
Group school and benefits and pensions together, right? So those are back to back, and then put police and that back to back. I think library, which is part of culture and recreation. I mean, you could hear from them sooner than later, but what you'll hear from them is that they're kind of some of their like capital expense items, which is the largest part of their ask, is somewhat dependent on how the CPC process goes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right. Does anyone know when is school vacation week?
is it the week of the 17th?
This week? The reason I'm asking is that would be a week we would likely want to not schedule a meeting.
I don't know for sure, but I think that sounds right to me.
Yeah, but you wouldn't, I mean, it's certain people, you wouldn't, I mean, we could have it as a working session or something. I mean, unless it affects anybody else on the committee.
All right, so for now, what if we did this? What if for this week of the 10th, and this calendar, it begins on a Monday, so the 10th is a Monday. That's like our preliminary read on police, fire, and DPW.
Yeah, so confirm, I'm looking at the school website. There, that is the week of the 17th is school vacation for the school.
I mean,
All right. So, all right, does that make sense for sort of a working schedule? So after tonight, there's 2 weeks off, and then we'll meet. Let's figure this one out now too. Does anybody have preference for days of the week? And we should probably stay away from Wednesdays because that's the selectmen's meeting.
Yeah. First Tuesday of the month is tough for me. And FYI, next week I am in DC Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Okay,
Thursdays work well.
yes.
Yeah, they do.
Thursdays are great.
all right,
Yep.
done. Okay. All right, so for now, that is what we're gonna go by. We'll come back to this in a second. All right, so related to this, liaisons. I didn't even try to fill this one out.
Can we just do what we did last year?
We could.
I mean,
So I know for school, it's Deborah and,
Not me, because
no?
no,
Okay.
Deborah's doing the school.
You
I'm
did.
doing the library.
So
And then
in the
did you do
library,
fire with Dan too?
But I'm doing fire with Dan.
Yeah.
And I also, Dan, didn't we do police also?
Yeah, and I did DPW.
Right. So I'm happy to do fire again. Yeah. But Deborah's also on the CPC. I'm just doing the library part of it.
you're right. Yes, exactly. So I put the culture and recreation includes library.
Okay.
In housing, isn't housing going to be CPC? Or are we, or is that housing ADU?
That's housing ADU.
Okay. And
It seems like it's a big enough topic that it needs its own lead. Dan, do you want to do police?
Yeah, Barbara and I have done police consistently together
Sure.
and fire
And I'm
together.
happy to do it again. It doesn't sound like it's a very tough year for them either. I mean,
Well,
we'll
and-
find out, but
what's other public safety?
I don't know.
Yeah, are we shortchanging Tim and Melanie on these tasks?
oh yeah, good
Well,
point.
yeah, we are definitely
Very
are.
good point. Who does housing liaison actually liaise with?
It would
Just-
be the planning board.
I think it's the planning board.
And also
Okay.
Joy. We don't have Joy up there at all either.
Oh. Well, we can just be arbitrary then.
Yeah. You can put me down for DPW because that's what I did last year. I thought DPW and I thought water and sewer and enterprise were separate, but maybe not. I don't know. I know I met with Zach and Tony on DPW. I mean, I could
yeah, water, sewer, and enterprise kind of is bunched with DPW.
Yeah,
Right. I'm wondering if you want to put Tim on housing and have him maybe with planning?
He'd be good at it.
Yeah,
And what do we,
maybe,
What's other public safety again?
I don't know why, I mean, all I can think of is it's emergency management, which kind of falls under police.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
It
For now.
it includes inspectional services.
Okay.
So all of those little budgets, EMD, harbor master, wharfinger.
Hmm.
And it does also include like public health.
you want to put
Have
Joy
we had
on that?
liaisons? Have we had liaisons before for those specifically?
I don't remember, but
no, we did not.
We didn't.
Do we need them?
I think you could roll it into town government and to just separate like EMD would be with the police. Police / EMD, and then inspectional services, all that stuff could go under town government.
Are there any other articles that are sufficiently meaty that it needs a separate person, a separate lead?
All right, so a couple other articles that are gonna come up this year. That I think you should be aware of. Simple stuff like selectmen wanna change the charter, from selectmen to select board. That's simple. You don't need a liaison for that.
Right.
Related to Coast Guard housing, which I don't think we have to spend a ton of time on it, but we have another offering going right now. We'll know especially by the first week of March if we don't have any bids on something. But we also know that we still have one house that has people in it, number 12. The original article authorized 2 offerings over 2 years. We're in the second offering now. So we're going to need an article to give us authority to do another offering. At least, we might want to ask for 1 or 2 more, but I don't think it could become somewhat awkward at town meeting if the person who lives in lot number 12 shows up. But I mean, for the most part, I think everybody's on the same page of, yeah, take as many offerings as you need to get these things sold, right?
yeah, if we put together an article for one more offering, or I'm just trying to think, like, I'd hate to, what do you have, 5 lots left? 6 lots left?
We have 7 lots left.
7 lots left.
One
And
of them is occupied.
Right. But I'd hate to say, let's put an article in for one more offering, and then all of a sudden you don't get bids on, say, four of them, and we got to wait until
Right.
the house is empty, and now we're waiting a year and a half or something, like I would say, at least 2 more offerings.
Yeah, that, or what I was talking with Dan about was like, could we vote to amend like the article that was voted on in a previous town meeting to basically strike the language that says 2 offerings over 2 years. So that way we have authority, like there is no cap.
Yeah, but doesn't that, and I'm going to put my town moderator's hat on, does that not open the ability
Yes, it does.
for somebody to step up and say, well, let's not sell those 7 buildings at all. Let's turn it into
Yeah, you're
open
right.
space.
So it might be better to just do a different article that authorizes like 2 or 3 more offerings or something
Right.
like that.
Due to, circumstances, we're gonna go with with 2 additional offerings. I mean, essentially, we've done what we needed. We've accomplished what we've needed to accomplish essentially, other than 1 lot because there's 7 left. But we've alternated the intent of the committee was to alternate the lots and not allow for somebody to buy 2 lots and put a McMansion there. And
Right.
we've essentially done that, except for lot 7. But you certainly, as selectman and town administrator, you certainly can say, oh, we're going to put up, this lot and the other lots and kind of leave a gap in between all of them. So yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, so that'll be an article, how it gets drafted. We got some work on that, but I don't know if we need a liaison for it.
Right.
Another large borrowing article. So last night I announced that we got awarded the FEMA hazard mitigation grant for Short Beach Dune. It's a $3.5 million grant. It's awesome. It's like a huge win for us.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
That's great.
Great
Yeah.
job. Who did that, Tony? That's outstanding. Who was the
Awesome.
prime mover?
I mean, there's so many people that have been involved in it. Myself, couple engineers. It even dates back to like the MVP committee was really where we started like the process of it. And Mima's been helping us, our state rep senator, our congressman. We're going to do a big event on February 4th at Short Beach to like announce it publicly. So that grant is at a 78% match, which means our amount to match it is 1.2. We've already approved 500 in borrowing. So we're going to look to ask to borrow an additional, 8 to cover that. Now it's possible what FEMA's told us is that even though it's at 78% today, during the grant, it can go all the way up to 90% match. So then our 1.2 would be reduced, to only 350,000 if we only had to match 10%. So, but we need that full amount authorized to borrow for in order to cover our match of the grant.
Right. And authorization is sufficient. It doesn't have to actually be funds borrowed.
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a huge victory for the town. That's the biggest grant by millions of dollars that the town's ever seen. So that's a big one. I've talked to Allison a little bit about, we haven't really decided yet. Allison's a little bit hesitant because of our limitations on funding something like this, but I've thought about an article to create a capital stabilization account. So as you guys know, we have a stabilization account currently that's really, funded over $1 million now. Especially with Coast Guard housing and this influx of free cash that's going to come. My thought was if we created a capital stabilization account that was separate, a lot of those like something like that you could put into there next year. And then, if people want to take bites at it for certain capital projects, you'd have to go, get a 2/3 vote to take the money. If you put the whole idea of it is that you're kind of separating the two savings accounts, that one is for operating expense emergencies and one is for capital expense emergencies, similar to how I think about, free cash versus unrestricted revenue. So that could be an article. We haven't fully decided yet, but that might be something that we look at. Additionally, we've talked a little bit about creating a stormwater enterprise account. I think you guys might remember Jeff Lewis talking about this in the past. A stormwater enterprise account it's similar to like you have water, sewer, trash. How that's distributed amongst residents, I believe you could do like a flat rate that just gets added to your utility bill. And it basically funds operating expenses related to stormwater situations, so coastal storms. So right now we basically budget in the DPW's operating expenses. We put funds in there for what if we have a big storm and we got to bring in other crews to help us with removal of debris? What if we have to rent pumps? That sort of stuff. And it's funded out of, your typical real estate tax appropriation, not appropriation, revenue. But if you don't have the events, you end up, with extra money in the account that comes back for next year. So by creating a stormwater enterprise account and funding it through a separate rate would allow us to kind of use that, and then it doesn't hurt our efforts to try to balance our budget on an annual basis. So you're basically offsetting some costs from your general fund into an enterprise account. Did I confuse everybody?
No,
No, not at all.
Actually, please explain again what the enterprise account
So,
does.
so like our water enterprise account or sewer enterprise account, we pay out of that, we pay for our MWRA assessment. We also pay some salaries and benefits to the DPW workers out of that. We pay for some purchase services, like if we have a water break and we have to hire Grunice to come in and fix it, we pay for it out of that. And it's funded through your water bill. So our rate is calculated based on predicted usage plus those extra costs. And that's how we develop our rate. So it doesn't end up, those costs aren't a burden on your general budget, your general fund budget, which is funded through your other, unrestricted revenues like real estate tax.
I get it. So how would this one that you're proposing now, where would that special funding come from us?
It would be like an extra fee
Yeah,
on your utility bill.
on our utility bills. Okay.
Yep, it would be called a stormwater charge or something like that.
Yep.
Obviously, there's no it's not like water and sewer where it's based on how much you use. So I think it would be a flat rate for every customer. I don't know what that rate is, but if, let's say you wanted that stabilization account, that stormwater enterprise account, let's say it was $30,000, you split that $30,000 amongst the 1,500 utility bills that we collect.
Well, to that point, Tony, I'd like to have more nut and bolts on this to have an idea of historically what are we spending on an average over 3 to 5 year period for stormwater control. It's currently baked into the DPW budget, but there must be some way of looking at how much have we been spending. And to me, the thing that makes it attractive or unattractive to have it be its own enterprise account, because essentially even though it's a fee, it raises the baseline cost for all the homeowners. How variable is it from year to year? Is this a place where we're constantly getting, a big ugly surprise every 4th year that we would want to have a special account set up for it?
Right.
Well,
Yeah, I could look
if it's
back.
a big ugly surprise every 4 years, you would want to have
Yes.
an account because you can buffer it.
Exactly. If it's 5 times the baseline every 3rd year, then we want to be prepared for that. If it's if it's not tremendously variable and is reasonably predictable and isn't a huge dollar amount, the current method of it being baked into DPW's budget seems to be working.
And then,
Uh,
and then to add another layer of like technicality, in the enterprise account, unspent funds drop to retained earnings in a future year.
Yeah.
Just like
Which is-
unspent general fund money drops to free cash in a future year.
Yeah, which is good because that's how you're smoothing.
Yeah.
So, and
So yeah, and I could look back at, you'd be looking at, there's overtime costs with the DPW, there's purchase services like hiring an outside contractor to come in, there's equipment rental, like those types of things that we could look at and come up with some of that information that you're looking for, Dan.
Yeah, and then from my part, two observations. One, we'd want to be clear about what qualifies. So we don't end up quibbling about, well, was this a big enough storm that it really should, right? And it's also moving that right now it's paid for by real estate taxes, which are tax deductible to the homeowner. And if we push it over to the other side, it's no longer tax deductible to the homeowner.
oh, very good information.
Right.
It wouldn't be a huge amount of money though.
Except there's the problem that we can't predict because of climate change. That
Yes.
really large costly things could be coming.
All right, back to our schedule.
Yeah, if
Sorry.
if I were to push for something like this, I think you got to look back, right? But if you, let's say it was a $30 annual charge to every resident, which is then split up between 3 bills, so it's $10 3 times a year. Times, if it's about 1,500 accounts, you'd bring in about $45,000 for that enterprise account. So I want to look at, like Dan said, what's really the need, and then you try and figure it out from there. But it's not like $100 extra. We're talking about possibly like $30 or less annually as a stormwater charge.
And you
So-
look back at what we spent in the past on having specialists come in for debris clearing and things like that.
I'll pull that stuff for Dan. In talking with Zach, it does vary. In 2018, it's massive amounts of money.
Right.
Some years it's just all it is OT, overtime for when we have coastal storms at night or on the weekends, and the DPW's here dealing with those flooding issues. So it does vary from year to year.
And I'm sure the DPW lacks enthusiasm for any reduction in their current baseline budget that reflects now all spending on stormwater comes out of the enterprise fund.
Actually, no. We talked about it with Zach.
They would give back.
Yeah, so you'd try to shift some of those costs. So when I'm talking to you about our unrestricted revenues and what everybody's requesting, I'm talking about really the general fund. And I got to balance those things. One way of an effort of doing that in reducing expenses is shifting that expense to an enterprise account, right? So
Sure.
it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get less total money. It just means it's being funded separately, which reduces some of the burden on the general fund balancing effort.
Well, and the thing we can see from the big picture is we are flirting with an override closer and closer every year. And this staves off that activity without the need for an override. Just, some minor extent, but it's moving in the right direction. So I think there's a bit of discussion on this in any event.
So this might be something that you want to put on your list for like a separate discussion or liaison or something like that.
Yeah.
So just a thought. Earlier, you talked about some other sorry, my, I don't know, my memory is shot, but we talked about I think it's the debt service on the school ends this year. If we vote for this enterprise fund, then money that we collect for the enterprise fund could be offset so that so you know what I'm saying? We would kind of hurt the citizen of Nahant a little bit less. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, total money
I'll
out of
take
their
that, Bob.
pocket.
Oh,
Yeah,
joy.
yeah. Instead of you know instead of us getting a windfall because we don't have that debt service anymore, and I mean we as citizens, for X amount of dollars, we take some of that X amount of dollars and put them into this enterprise fund. Does that? I mean, this would align because we would need to vote on it this year in order for it to start next year.
Well, aren't there
Well-
different sources? The enterprise fund would be a fee on current utility bills and funded that way. And the debt service that we anticipate washing out is currently from the general funds and is part of ordinary real estate taxes.
So rough number, and obviously your real estate tax is based on the value of your home. But if it was a per unit cost, I think we raise about $300,000 a year on that for the school
Yep.
through the override. Divide that by 1,500 households, it's $200 each. Now it's not perfectly like that because it's technically based on the value of your home.
Yeah. But I get the
So
point.
yeah, so at a high level, you're saying
Instead of
you're
instead
gonna
of
save $200 next year, but we're gonna
it's-
charge you an extra 30, so you're really saving 170.
right. So we're going to be happy, and we're doing something fiscally responsible for the future. And maybe it's not 30, maybe you go to 50. I mean, I'm just this is going to help us down the
You
road.
must not use a lot of water.
They don't shower.
We don't shower I work from home. I don't have to shower, but once a week. I'm just kidding.
Why
Yeah,
so
I mean,
often?
there's a balancing act too.
Yeah, I know.
Utility
I get it.
bills, we've put a lot of, in fact, in recent years, we've shifted some costs from water sewer enterprise to the general fund to try to offset the increase in water sewer rates because we were anticipating, significant increases with Lynn Water Sewer, remember?
Right. Yep.
So we actually shifted some to the general fund so there is a balancing act where you don't want utility bills to be super expensive.
Right.
Okay. All right, so let's go with this. And practical matter, what that means is the police, fire, and DPW liaisons need to meet with your department head sometime over the next 2 weeks and be prepared just for a preliminary read. It doesn't have to be final, it doesn't have to be fancy, but just a preliminary read for Wednesday, February 12th.
Is that the day we tell them that they will be meeting with all of us?
To present, to present to
To
us.
present.
The way I saw this could be just like an internal feedback from the liaison to the committee. And then this week, well, that's the police week, police and fire week. And then the subsequent week is when the department head would come to meet with us.
They're going to want to know which is the week when they need to come meet with us.
This week. I mean, this block of weeks down here. And I will send this around. Is that clear?
Yep.
Barbara?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we need to start meeting with them where they talk with us more informally soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it feasible? Is there value to a preliminary read on with the planning board for the ADUs.
I don't see it generating spending. That's our charter, that's our mission.
Right, but there
I
will
mean,
be an article. And I assume we will be commenting on that article.
yeah, it certainly couldn't hurt to encourage them in the right direction, which in my mind is the most stringent zoning restrictions that we can possibly apply to this. And back to Tony's point that the calendar, when we're actually going to get data back from the the Attorney General. In the meantime, if we push it to the extreme, it will have a chilling effect on people building mini houses in their backyards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you guys should try to attend their public
Yes.
hearings.
We should definitely, I was going to say the same thing. I try to encourage people to, but maybe,
I was on their last one, so
let's actually, for now anyway, let's put that down here. They're going to be quite busy over the next couple of weeks, so let's not have them lose focus. But if we put it down here, they'll have had some public hearings, and I think it'll be much more effective if we drop it there.
Tony, I have a question about this as school liaison. I don't want to be redundant because it sounds as if you are working pretty closely with them right now. Do we need me at this point to do that?
I mean, yes, I think so. We're not 100% aligned. You know, the school understands it wasn't like there was any animosity with with the message I was delivering, but there was definitely some pushback. You know, they're pretty strongly supportive of needing this additional
Yeah, right.
full-time person, and I'm on, and then there's, you know, their budget, the lesser budget that doesn't include that, and I'm struggling to even get there. So I think there is going to be, you know, there's definitely going to be some
Okay.
back and forth, I would say, you know.
Yeah. Well, he sent me the version 1 and the version 2 of his, you know, so, okay.
I mean, it's a hard thing. School's tough because really we just give them a total number. They control the rest. So, you know, we're trying to look into the detail to find ways to potentially save some money as far as what's coming from the town, and find ways for them to still do those things by funding it with alternative sources.
Mhm.
But it's kind of a sensitive line for me to go in there and say, shift this to that and shift this to that. I kind of have to go into it and say, I
Yeah.
think you could do this to, you know, to not lose that service or person or something.
Have you considered?
Right. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, I do think they're going to want to talk to you, though. I don't know
Yeah,
if they're going to be
I've been in
fully
touch
on
with
board.
Rob, so, you know, he's expecting to deal with me. Okay.
All right. My last administrivia piece here is, are we going to set up a shared drive where you can drop documents?
Yep. I think the one from last year is still live, but I can.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
was useful.
Yeah, would you mind sending the link to it, resending the link to it?
No problem.
And then remember, FinCom, remember, this is a place to just drop documents. We're not going to do like collaborative edits or anything like that in the drive or through Google Docs or through Excel or anything, because that is an open meeting law violation.
Oh,
I know
Clear?
where you got that from.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. And there was some fallout from that. Okay.
Hey, you guys caught some some shrapnel on that conversation.
Yeah, and we had nothing to do with it.
Yep. Yeah. So, all right. So you know where I'm coming from. All right. Is there anything we missed that we should have covered? We have liaisons. We have a pretty good idea what our schedule is. We know where the big rocks are. Anything else we need to deal with, to add?
Do we have an approach? We're looking at a big matching number, and even though we just have to approve it at this hour to enjoy this grant, this committee will have to obviously recommend it or not recommend it. Do we have one of us who's doing that, or will we all just do it in a meeting?
What's the right name for that? Short Beach.
Short Beach Grant Match, because it's a big number that we got to come up with for this. And I think we need to be able to be articulate advocates for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that. All right, good catch. Oh, yeah. It's not a tree, Bob. It's one of those. Okay. The last thing on the agenda is public forum. And looking at the attendee list, the only public we have is Austin, who's been here for the entire time. So, hi, Austin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm just here to get an idea of your schedule, that's all. But thank you all.
Thank you. We'll be seeing you soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
I just sent you guys the link for that Dropbox folder, and I put that timeline document and that PowerPoint document into the folder.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And I will clean this up and put this there as well.
And will you also, can you also send it to us as an email?
Yes, I certainly can.
Great.
Okay. So look, according to our schedule, our next meeting is going to be, sorry, Thursday, the 13th of February. And I guess having said that, I think a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
I'll second.
Dan moves, Barbara seconds. Quick roll call vote. Dan,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
who am I missing? Me, I think that's it. So we are adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Yes.
Good night, Deborah.
Good night,
Awesome.
everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Tony. Off and rolling.
This is it.
Yep.
Game time.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Absolutely.
There's no going back now.
Nope.
All right. Thanks, guys.